It's time for this week's episode of Brandon's Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon's Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon's Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Nashville Soccer Club's former sports photographer, John Wilkinson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Brandon. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you
Appreciate
talk
you
about?
having me out.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to work in sports photography?
That's a great question. I had never owned a camera until about 10 years ago, and I coach high school soccer at a local school called Christ Presbyterian Academy. It's a K-12, and I work with the goalkeepers over there. And about 10 years ago, I decided, I'm going to buy a camera and take some pictures of the girls and the guys' teams playing, and maybe I'll put together a book. And I bought a little cheap Canon Rebel. I think it was a T3i. It was the one that you pay $500 for, that you get at Costco, that has the two little lenses with it, and kind of started going from there. Had no idea what I was doing. I had a couple of photographer friends tell me there's two things you need to do. You need to shoot on manual and you need to shoot on raw. I said, okay. So I went there and started getting better at it. And again, I had no idea that I was going to end up making a job or a career of this. And about 3 or 4 years later, things started getting more gear, better gear, and getting better at what I was doing. And to jump forward to about 2014 with Nashville SC. At the time, it was called Nashville FC, and it was a semi-pro thing. Part of that would have been, I can't remember what the league was called, but it would have been the equivalent of now of like USL League 2. So like the summer league where the college kids come and play, but it's not a professional thing. And it was just started by a guy called Chris Jones, who's still there. I think he's like the director of community engagement or something, senior director. He's a great guy, but he started the thing, and it was just kind of a coalition of the willing, with the idea that maybe someday it'll become a USL team and go from there. So they were doing an announcement. Hey, we're meeting out at a local sports pub, and said, hey, can you come out and take some pictures of this? We don't really have any budget because we're brand new, but I said, yeah, that'd be great, because I'm real plugged in with the soccer community here in Nashville. So that's where that relationship started. So that was in 2000. I say it's either 13 or 14. I think it was 13, because 14 was the first year they played the season, I believe. So that's where that relationship started.
What was it like, obviously, joining the Nashville Soccer Club to become a professional sports photographer?
It's a lot of fun. It's and people think that it's like some glamorous glam rock job, and it is a cool gig, but it's also something that you've got to be good at. You've got to be able to work quickly. You've got to be able to work well with others. And whether you're working for a local high school or a college, whatever the level, or a professional team, there's a certain responsibility you have. If you are hired and tasked to do something, you're responsible to capture moments that will come in, that you don't get a chance to do it again. It's no different than a wedding photographer, in that sense, that there are certain things that when they happen, you either captured them or you didn't. And it's really important to take that role seriously, but also not take yourself too seriously, that you're not working in a hospital, if that makes any sense.
What was it like the first time you got to join the Nashville Soccer Club to be their sports photographer?
It was great. The first year they, like I said, they did the semi-pro thing for 3 or 4 years. And then in 2018, is that right? Yeah, it's 18, 19, 20, 20. Yes, in 2018, they started their in USL, which is the second USL championship, which is the second tier of soccer in America. And it's a big league, great league. And we started in January, actually, with a media day. Where all the players come in and we capture there were 4 or 5 stations. You've got headshots, you've got action shots, you've got some video stuff. and there's 3 or 4 stations like that where they're there for 2 or 3 hours, and you get maybe 3 or 4 minutes with each player. Maybe the marquee player you get a couple extra minutes with. But we captured all kinds of content that the content team would use throughout the season. And the first match we had was at First Tennessee Park, which they've got a different name for it now, but it's our AAA minor league baseball stadium, and it was playing the Atlanta United FC, and that would be the equivalent in baseball of your local AAA team, and like say hosting the New York Yankees, because at the time Atlanta was a good, great team, but they were really doing well. And that first match was an absolute monsoon. I mean, it was nonstop, just rain, rain, rain. But you have covers and things like that. But we're able to capture the first goal we scored. A guy called Rapapa Mensa scored the first goal, and it was right at my end where I was, and he came right toward me. I don't know if he did it intentionally, but he came right toward me, and we got these wonderful shots that capture the first goal we scored in franchise history. So that was a lot of fun.
What was it like covering media day for the Nashville Soccer Club?
Media days are a lot like anything else. If you plan ahead, and know what you're doing, and know what's going on with everybody, a lot of moving parts, they can go great. And just to be clear, when you do something like that for an organization, it's not just a one-man show. It's not the photographer running the show. It's the there's usually a director of content or someone for the club, or a creative director that has ideas and looks in mind, and things that there's a lot of planning ahead. I mean, if I don't have it with me here, but if I pulled up like a spreadsheet of one of those things, it would be 3 or 4 pages of very choreographed on where players are going to go, and what stations are going to do, and what kind of content we're going to get. But what's really important with that, and as I said, how to work with people. There are some players, just like in your friend group, in a friend group that you have, there are some players that are very outgoing and animated and are super engaged and have a great time. And then there's some that are more reserved, and you occasionally get some that maybe not be into it, and your job is to get the best out of them. So it represents the work I can do well, it represents the club well, and it represents the player well. So it's a lot of moving parts, and a lot of it takes a lot of planning ahead. But it's really great when everything gets done, and you start seeing the images and the video and the graphics and the posters and stuff around town get put out by a team of people that have spent a lot of time working on it.
What was it like to obviously create your own sports photography business, 912 Creations?
Yeah, 912 Creative. The idea, the name behind it is interesting. It's something I kind of stole from from a guy called Glenn Beck, and the idea behind 912 was, and we just of course had the 20th anniversary of 9/11. My takeaway from that era, from 20 years ago, was on one day you saw the absolute worst of humanity, and on the next day, on 9/12, you saw the best of humanity. People weren't screaming at each other, yelling about stuff that doesn't matter, or looking for reasons to dislike their neighbor or have a beef with somebody. It was all about elevating and edifying and making each other better. So that's where the name comes from. As far as what I do, it's an LLC. Actually, it's an S corporation, but it's an entity I have. So all my finances run through there, and when I hire subcontractors, they work through there to help me assist on things. But it's great. I mean, most of what I do is sports related, and not all of it is. I mean, I do a handful of weddings, not a ton, but a couple of them. Actually very few, but I do a handful of high school seniors, a lot of promotional looking stuff. My other 2 clients that I have now, that I would call both of them, I guess they're technically both clients, but I would call them both employers or coworkers, friends, are Lipscomb University and as I said earlier on, Christ Presbyterian Academy. And the stuff we're doing at Lipscomb is great. I mean, that's a Division I mid-major. But the amount of content they're putting out, the quality, the depth, breadth of what they're doing, and everybody over there, from the AD Hutch and Kirk Downs that I work with, and Nate Chase, all of them over there, Hannah. They're putting out content and stuff at the level of what you'd expect to see from a Power 5 school like this, like what you'd see from Georgia or Tennessee or Alabama. So they're a pleasure to work with. And what we do up at Christ Pres is real similar. It's a little scaled down because it's a smaller outfit, but we've really tried to take the approach that I've done with professional and college sports and bring it to the high school, rather than doing the picture day where it looks like the crummy pictures you get from the yearbook company and all that kind of stuff. We don't do that kind of stuff. We're putting out content where it looks like it's a small college. So it's a lot of fun, and the 912 creative is kind of the umbrella over all of that, and the other clients I have.
Of course, what was it like being a freelancer for Belmont University?
Belmont's great. They're a school up the road, and it's funny. They're actually a big rival of Lipscomb. They are, interestingly enough, those two schools, those two universities, are the closest in proximity to each other of any Division I schools in the country. So I think the distance between Belmont and Lipscomb is about a mile and a half. And they're on the same road. It's called Belmont Boulevard. I'm sure Lipscomb would probably like to rename that, but Belmont was great. I occasionally still do some work for them. They've got they've got a lot of stuff going on up there that's real nice. Their basketball program's been real successful. And I'll stress this about whether it's there or anywhere. The biggest thing to working with folks is getting on with people, being able to work with others, but it's about relationships. I mean, there are people that I've worked with, off and on, and sometimes more on than off, but regularly, that I've worked with for upwards of 8 or 10 years now, that you can call up and yes, there's an employer-employee dynamic, but there's also a friend dynamic where you can, go get a lunch together and we know what's going on in each other's lives. And I think that's really important, not just in this line of work, in any line of work. It's important to have good relationships with people where you are more than just a number or a vendor that they call to get something done, and then that's it.
What is some of the similarities and differences between working on the college level as a freelancer and obviously when you were working with the Nashville Soccer Club?
That's a great question too. The similarities are that you're wanting to capture great content. You're wanting to get great, whether it's game images or promotional media day images, and they're very they're all very choreographed events. I can get into the game day stuff in a second, but as far as what you just asked, the biggest difference I think is with a college, you are dealing with like at Lipscomb, there are, I believe, 15 teams across men's and women's sports, and they don't have football like a lot of the mid-majors don't, but they've got 15 teams up there, so that's 15 teams. And yes, basketball is the they'd call it the revenue generating sport, but all those programs up there are really good programs. They're successful. They compete well in the ASUN and the conference they're in. So working with a college, you've essentially got 15 teams you're trying to promote, versus a professional team, you've just got one team. So with the professional side, I think you probably get more focus on things that are more in depth, maybe players and a lot more. You've got one team to cover versus 15. But from my end, as far as the work, it's the same kind of work that I'm doing. We don't do here's the professional level of what I do, and we're going to dumb it down for the college and we're going to dumb it down for the high school. I tell the high school kids when I come in for our media days, I say, guys, this is the same technique, same equipment, same approach we take at the professional and college level. I just think from their standpoint, there's probably you're covering one team versus 15.
What is it like, obviously, covering 15 teams all at once for obviously universities like Lipscomb?
It's they don't have me out there for every single game. Even if they did, you of course can't physically be everywhere at the same time. Sometimes they've got multiple games going on campus. Like I know in the fall, you've got men's and women's soccer and volleyball all at the same season. So sometimes those overlap, and then they've got road trips. My role with them is primarily, again, I do those 15 media days, and I know last year I probably shot around, I'd say 30 games or matches across the sports. So probably 8 or 10 men's and women's basketball combined, a handful of soccer, And the good thing was men's and women's, sometimes men's and women's basketball same night, sometimes they're not, but volleyball, men's and women's soccer, baseball, softball are the main on-campus sports. And then you've got golf, cross country, and track and field that are off campus typically. Well, not typically. Golf is off campus. There's no golf course at Lipscomb. Tennis is actually on campus for them. They've got lovely tennis court facilities. And from their standpoint, you want to get content from as many games as possible. And but some of those sports like golf and cross country, you can go out and shoot 1 or 2 events and use those throughout the season, because they're not really opponent specific. When you're playing, let's say they're playing Stetson, they want to have a picture of Belmont playing Stetson in the graphics and the post game stuff and throughout the social media posts throughout the game, versus a picture from a month ago from some random opponent. So it's different like that. And again, the same thing at the high school level. Try to get out as many things as I can. High school is a little easier to get to away games because they're all in town, versus a Lipscomb away game is more than likely in a different state. So again, real similar stuff, just different levels of how much you can cover and what you can do and with the various levels.
What is it like, obviously, during halftime, going back to the locker room to obviously go through some of your photos and edit as many as possible before the next halftime?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something I get a lot from people. That they want to know how you get stuff out quickly, how you get what the workflow is. And I don't want to drone on too long here, but this is a fun one. I'm going to pull these up here. I am a Sony shooter. This is a Sony A1, which is their flagship. It would be in Canon speak, it would be like an equivalent of it would be like a 1DX3, but Canon's got a new R3 now. But anyway, or a Nikon D6, and it's there. It shoots 30 frames a second. It's wonderful. But the really cool thing about it is it's got built-in Wi-Fi, and it connects to my phone. So during the game, basketball is a great one for this, because and same with football. Any of them are fine, but basketball is really great with the college. You've got TV timeouts. So as the game is going on, I am shooting the game as it's happening. I will mark them. There's a button I've assigned on this camera where it locks the images, so that way when they get to a TV timeout at the 16, 12, 8, at the 4-minute blocks, I can go through them and just pick a half a dozen of them or so and send them up either to my phone and to a server for which the social media manager on the night has a link, or sometimes we use a hotspot. It actually goes FTP directly to something. I just push a button on the camera. That's kind of leading up to what you just asked me, but to get to halftime, when I come to halftime, I will have probably shot, let's say at a basketball game, or soccer, or again at the high school, anything. I've probably shot 500 images in the first half, if not more. And what I'll do is I'll come over and I've marked those images I wanted. Maybe let's say I've marked 40 images. I will then put the card into my MacBook Pro I've got here, and I open up a program called Photo Mechanic. And if you talk to anyone who shoots sports, or and I think people that shoot weddings and events should use Photo Mechanic too. It's wonderful, but it has a thing where it will import only the ones you've marked. So instead of importing 500 images, having to sift through them, it just imports the ones you've already marked, because you kind of know what you want anyway. It brings those in. I do a quick crop, quick maybe exposure, color correction thing, export those at halftime. So for the second half, the social media manager at the school has a full gallery to use and to post and to get ready for their post-game story. And then come the end of the game, it's the same thing. I'll take the images from the second half and import those. And for my standpoint, from a purely selfish standpoint, it means after the game, I'm out the door in 5 to 7 minutes. I'm out of the door, in the car, heading home. I'm not going home and work sifting through 1,000 images and spending 2-3 hours on that, because I'm not getting paid anymore to do that. And from their standpoint, they've got a gallery of 80 to 100 images at the end of the game where they're ready to go, and they're not waiting on me. So it really works well for both of us. And I know the other cameras do this, but I'll plug these again. These Sonys are wonderful, and they really make that workflow really simple. That was probably too long of an answer, but I hope that makes sense.
What is it like, obviously, on the professional side during halftime, do you do the same process?
It
for
would.
professional?
I do the same thing pretty much for any of them. The only difference between the high school, professional, and college level would be at the high school level, there really is no digital media manager at the game that I'm sitting up to in a press box. It's kind of me doing most of it. So I will do the same thing, but I'll pull in maybe 8 or 10 images and then put those out at halftime. But yeah, at the college or professional level, it's the same thing. The professional team may have more people on staff that they're doing different things, but they're all doing the same end result where they're putting out Instagram stories or putting out stuff on Twitter. They're putting out you're getting halftime graphics ready, and they need images and content for that. And in a sport, it's funny because different sports have, of course, in soccer, 3-0 is that's a lot. And I say it's a lot of goals, but basketball, you've got 85 to 70 will be a basketball. So if you miss a play, unless it's something huge, you probably can get another one again. I mean, one of the things we do with I come at Lipscomb with basketball is they'll text me in the middle of the third quarter and say, hey, so and so's probably going to be our player of the game. Make sure we have some stuff for them, and we probably do anyway, because if so and so, if like Hassan is going to be the player of the game, he's probably scored 25 points, and I've already got stuff from him. But we always make sure we have stuff for that. So there's a constant communication going on with what they need and what I'm giving them, and hopefully we're all on the same page, and it works out well at the end.
What is something that you learned now that you didn't know before starting sports photography?
Oh man, there's all kinds of things. That's the whole was youth wasted on the young thing. Anyway, no, there's so many things. I'll answer this in a somewhat different way, but kind of the same way. Anyone younger doing this or anyone newer starting out doing this, take the time to learn your craft. Take the time to talk to people that do great work, both in terms of artistically, technically, workflow, and figure out what they're doing, and figure out what works and what doesn't work. There's some things there are right and wrong ways to do things, but then there are some ways that they're just different between each person. The biggest thing I would say to pass on too is don't get hung up on the gear you have. I know that is real easy for me to say when I'm holding a $6,000 camera and I've got 3 of them sitting here, but if you don't have that gear, then shoot with what you have. I'll tell this story real quick. The best picture I took last year, at least I think it was the best picture, was at our high school girls cross country region meet, and the way those work is each team gets to run 6 or 7 runners, and the top 5 score, and the top 3 advance to the state tournament and the state meet. And it was raining really heavy that day, and so I brought my 400 and I brought my 70 to 200. I always keep a third body with a wide angle on it in case something you want to capture the context for something. Well, I left that in the car because I only had 2 rain covers, and as the finishing up the race, it's a 5K. So at about 3 miles, about 50 yards left, one of our girls, who's probably about 8th or 10th in the pack, she goes down, and she's just out of gas, and she gets up, takes a couple more steps, and goes down again. And it was painful to watch, but she wasn't a health issue, but just oh, she's so close, and she started crawling. So she literally crawled on her all fours to 50 yards to the finish line. And as she's getting closer, I'm zooming out with my 70 to 200, and at some point you hear the click, and that's where it stops. And I'm just saying all kinds of things in my head, frustrated myself that I don't have my wide angle. And as she's about 8 or 10 feet from the finish line, I remembered I had my iPhone, which is actually an iPhone 6S plus. I've got to get a new one at some point, but I had that in my pocket. So I pulled it out and took a picture of her crawling to the finish line, and she's right there at the end. The finish line, you can see the timer, the coach is coaxing her on, her teammate in front of her. And so that picture was just spectacular with this really not great quality camera. And we ended up winning the meet, and because of what she did, and it was just this wonderful picture. But so I'll just tell people, shoot with what you have. If all you have is something that's not as good as what I've got here, then that's okay. Find a way to make great images with it. So that's maybe a long answer to what you asked, but that's something I guess I'd say is to myself 10 years ago, is be content with what you have, work hard so you can get things that you like better, things that are better, but shoot with what you have, and certainly don't go, and I didn't do this, but certainly don't go into debt, to buy all this expensive stuff that doesn't make sense on a return on investment yet. And definitely, if your pictures aren't up to the quality of what you think they should be, don't blame the gear. Don't blame the gear. Don't think that going and spending all this money is going to suddenly turn your pictures into great images, because it's really not. The best example I can give for that, when I first got a 400 2.8, which of course is the standard for sports photography, for outdoor stuff. This is 6 or 7 years ago. I got a 400, and I got home and the pictures were terrible. And it was simply that I hadn't been used to using a prime lens and shooting with it. But when I got home and they were no good, I couldn't blame the gear, because it's the best gear you can get. So I grew into that lens real quickly. But like I said, don't make the mistake of thinking that it's the gear. It's not getting you the good images. You can get great images with whatever you've got.
What advice would you give people looking to obviously be sports photographers on the college level?
I would say the best advice I would give is to start wherever you are. And by that, I mean, if all you have there is the local high school, or maybe it's your kids' games, whatever, start there. My athletic director, a guy called Mike Elson, he always, the phrase he uses is make wherever you are the big time. You can't control you can't control where you're shooting. You can't control the fact that, hey, I'm shooting this at the high school and the background is a bunch of parked cars and chain link fence versus, Neyland Stadium in Tennessee. You can't control that. You can't control that you're taking a picture of a high school kid rather than of Tom Brady. So I would say to anyone wanting to do this, work hard, get to where you are. Get to where your skill set is excellent at the high school and local level. And it's back to the gear thing. If you're taking really average pictures and doing stuff at the high school level, suddenly getting on the field at where Auburn or Alabama or North Carolina, your neck of the woods, where they play, it's not going to make your pictures any better. They're just going to be the same thing with higher profile players. And it's really important when you're shooting games. Shoot stuff beyond just the action. Shoot the emotion. The pictures I get the most response are not, oh, there's so and so catching a ball. It's the emotion. I think of the Super Bowl, and with the exception of a couple plays, maybe that play where the Seahawks guy came in and it was Michael Sherman, I think his name was. He busted up the first and goal at the end of the game. With that, or the exception, or the Giants guy catching the ball in his helmet, both of those were against the Patriots. With the exception of those, there are very few Super Bowl pictures in the past 10 years that most people can say, oh, that's the iconic moment of the game. Versus when I think of an iconic moment, I think of, there was a picture about 3 or 4 years ago when Brady won the Super Bowl with one of the ones for the Patriots. He's holding his daughter in his arms. He's holding up the trophy. The photographer is behind him, and it's an image of, obviously it's Brady holding his daughter, but you can see the reflections in the trophy. So the advice I'd say is make sure you're capturing more than just people running and jumping and kicking and catching. There's so much more to sports. If all you're getting at sports is just the action, you're missing a whole lot of really great stuff. And you get this is the kind of stuff also I'll say that you get at the high school and college level, sometimes even more than at the professional level with, say, football, is the pageantry. I mean, if you go back to a college you went to 10 years ago, the student section is still doing the same chants and the cheers and the and things like that. And you've got a lot of that at a high school game. So you've got these high school football is a community event that happens to have a game. I think is the way I word it. Kind of like the Super Bowl, it's an event that happens to have a game. But high school football is such a great experience for the kids doing it, but for everybody going. But it's it is just low hanging fruit for all kinds of great photography if you want to do that. And again, shoot beyond just the game, shoot the people, shoot the stands, shoot the cheerleaders, shoot the signage, the people in the parking lots tailgating and painting up their cars, and there's all kinds of great stuff like that to get there.
What advice would you give those people looking to go from obviously shooting on the college and high school level to obviously shooting now professionally for obviously a football team, soccer team, no matter what?
You know, the best advice I'd give is like I said earlier, is be someone who's reliable, be someone who's great to work with, and do your job really well and be able to do it quickly. And the other thing I'd say is don't get too hung up on what level you're doing stuff at. I mean, I did a perfect example, and the fun thing about this stuff is when you get to start having relationships with people, whether it's the professional athletes, whether it's the college folks, whether it's the front office and admin staff of these things, or the high school athletes or the families or whatever. I shot the Music City Bowl 2-3 years ago. I guess they didn't do it last year, a couple years ago, and it was great. It was I don't remember who played, maybe Wisconsin, North Carolina. No, it's Wisconsin, and it doesn't matter. I can't remember who played. Mississippi State, I think is where they were. Anyway, got some great images, awesome stuff. And you know, the people who hired me, they ran 8 or 10 images, and that was it. And I told my high school kids that ask about this stuff, I said, what's it like shooting that? What's it like? I said, well, it's great, it was fun. I said, but I don't know any of those people. I don't have any relationship with any of them. And I've got a bunch of really pretty pictures from the game sitting on a hard drive, backed up and on a cloud server. I use my Smug Mug to back things up, and I put things on Blu-ray, sorry. But I said, versus when I shot our state championship football game last December, I know everybody on the team. I know everybody in the stands. So the relationship is different with that. So while one is a far bigger stage, you're playing a late December bowl game in Nissan Stadium that holds 60,000 people. And it's on national TV, versus the high school state championship had 3,000 or 4,000 people in the stands. The high school game was more rewarding for me because I know everybody there. They were both fun for different reasons, but I'd say don't get, like I said, do great work, be great to work with, be reliable, do your work quickly, but don't get too caught up on the level you're doing things. Like my AD says, make wherever you are the big time.
That's wonderful. Where can my listeners find you at on social media and find all of your work at?
They'd be glad to share that with you. My website is jfw3.com. That's Juliet Foxtrot Whiskey 3.com. Those are my initials, of course. I'm a third, John Wilkinson the third. And on Instagram, my Instagram handle is jwilkinson3. That's actually spelled Jay Wilkinson, WILKINSON 3. JFW wasn't available on Instagram. I didn't want to change, so they're a little different, but that's where you'd find those.
Thank you again, John Wilkinson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future, wherever it may be in sports photography.
Awesome, Brandon. Thanks for your time, and I hope that was helpful for you and the great work you're doing over there. And I hope the folks listening to that were able to get something out of it. And I'm going to pull these up so you can actually see my eyes here. Thanks for having me out.
Thank you.
All the best.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at @talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, John Wilkinson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thanks.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.